Good evening, dear participants of professional development webinars for English teachers in Kazakhstan. So I see that we have a lot of new participants today, so I would like to introduce myself. My name is Elena Feoktistova and I'm from Kazakhstan. I've been teaching at both private and state universities in Kazakhstan for about 20 years. But now I'm a Fulbright visiting scholar at the University of Oregon in the United States. And I decided to give a kind of give back to Kazakhstan and Kazakhstan teachers and organize professional development webinars for English teachers. We invite speakers from both US and UK, and our speakers make presentations about some interesting and useful topics, provide you with some tips, tools, strategies, and everything. So thank you so much for joining our webinar today. This is our 10th webinar. I will introduce our speaker a little bit later. So before we start, I would like to explain a little bit how we work. So we use Zoom platform, and this platform allows us to share some materials. And also, usually we mute you, and my assistant Slava, thank you so much to Slava, who helps me with that a lot. We have 33 participants today, wow. So more than ever. Thank you, Albina, for sending us all the new members of our webinars. So we have a kind of rule. So during the speaker's speech, we are muting you because there are 34 people here now and there is some background noise coming. So my assistant Slava makes sure that your background noise doesn't interfere with the speaker's speech. And also, as CAST provides you with certificate for attending the webinar, we want to make sure that you really attended the webinar and not just watched the recording on YouTube. That's why during the webinar, the speaker will be using 3 keywords. And when you will be completing the feedback form that we will also send you after the webinar, you have to provide these keywords. The speaker will give you a chance to ask him questions, but you can also unmute yourself and speak and ask your questions, or you can write in the chat, whatever you prefer. So if you have some questions about the webinar, how we run them, you're welcome to ask them now. Okay, so and before I introduce the speaker for our presentation today, I would like to invite Albina to speak about her experience, how she won a TESOL grant and attended the hugest, one of the biggest conferences for English teachers in the world. There were about 6,500 participants. So welcome, Albina. We can see your presentation now. So you're welcome to share your experience. And I hope your experience will help our other teachers from Kazakhstan apply for such a great event and go and visit US and communicate with colleagues from all over the world. Albina, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good evening, Kazakhstan. Okay. Okay, my name is Albina Kasenova. I was a presenter at TESOL conference this year in Chicago. So I work at the National Center for Professional Development, Orlyo, in North Kazakhstan region. So I would like just to briefly give you tips how to apply for this conference, how to get a grant, how you can go there for free, totally free. So these are my small tips for you. So TESOL is the international conference for English teachers based in the USA. At the same time, we have ITEFL conference in the UK, but this time I tried to apply for the TESOL. So you can see, I'm not, Lena, can you see my presentation?
Yeah, I can. And I hope other participants too.
Okay, so yeah. So if you go on the website tesol.org, you can see this is the main page here. So yeah, and to apply for this conference, the first thing you have to do is to become a member of the TESOL. So you can see maybe these red signs I tried to circle to show you. So if you click there, so then you can go and see. So you pay for, oh, where's my, okay, sorry. So I forgot to put the slide. So to become a TESOL member, so you have to pay about $35. It's about 10,000 tenge. And then you will be a global member of TESOL. So after applying and paying for the membership, you can attend international conventions. So you can see here, again, I circled with a red color. If you click on this section, attend and learn, the first section is international convention. So and there, so for example, this year, not this year, but next year, it will be in Atlanta, I think. I can't remember next year. I think it's Atlanta. So, and they have a deadline. Last year they had in the same dates, I think, but in 2017. So you make sure that you know the deadlines for that. Don't miss the deadlines, because it's really important to prepare your proposal, all necessary information for that. So, and so I applied, I wrote my proposal. My topic was developing CLIL in Kazakhstan. I thought that this topic will be really interesting for our international colleagues, because this is really topical in Kazakhstan, and I think many countries doing the same. I applied, and my proposal was successfully accepted by the committee from the TESOL. So I'm showing you here is a screenshot of the, as I say, my lucky email I got in August last year. So you can see it. So yeah, and after that, the next step is to apply for a travel grant. They have, Lena, can I open the website from, if I share it? Okay.
You should stop sharing and then open the website and press share screen again and choose the website you want to share.
Okay. Let me try. Can you see what I'm opening here?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and then you can find here convention grants. If you click there, you can see there are, look, here's, I can see five grants for traveling. So, and I applied the TESOL TFL travel grant, I think, but unfortunately I didn't get the grant from the TESOL. But last year, in April, Olga Poterova, she's the coordinator from US Embassy in Astana. So she told me that even if I don't get a travel grant from the TESOL association, I can approach them. So, and even so they accepted my proposal, but I didn't get travel grant from the TESOL. And then as Olga recommended me, I wrote an email to them, to the RELO. RELO, it's a regional English language office in Astana for Central Asian countries. So I'm again showing you my presentation. So if you go kz.usembassy.gov, so you can see here is again section education, and then you can see regional English language office. Okay, no, sorry. So and I can give you their email, reloUSembassy.com, or I'm not sure. Yeah, I'll show you. I think right now. So Relo Astana. So if you just type like Relo Astana, the website will be the first in the first place. So, and I wrote an email saying that I received it, my proposal about CLIL presentation was accepted by the TESOL Association, but unfortunately I couldn't get travel grant. Could you please help me financially to go to the USA to represent our country? So, and so that my proposal was accepted in August last year, and then that procedure, that process with Relo in Kazakhstan, it took again maybe 2 or 3 months. And only in January, I got email saying that so Relo office giving me a travel grant to go to the USA. So this is Olga Poterova, who I was talking about. She's the representative from US Embassy in Astana. So this is my presentation about developing CLIL in Kazakhstan. So I was a presenting author. I was sharing our trilingual policy in Kazakhstan, how I taught 3 months science teachers, chemistry, biology, and ICT and physics teachers. So, and we were lucky. So this is Tatiana Litaykina, the CASTI president, our national.
Excuse me, we see the website, but not your presentation.
Sorry, how to do that?
So stop share and then share your presentation again.
Is it? Yeah. Can you see it now? Okay.
Yeah, we see the pictures. I see the minister, they see myself. And now you and Olga Poterova.
Yeah, so this is Olga Poterova and my presentation. I decided to do a poster session because I thought it would be for the first time to be at such a big event. I thought poster presentation would be fine for me. So if you're a newcomer there, just try to apply for a poster presentation. So, and we were lucky with all these Kazakhstani people to meet our Minister of Education, Mr. Sagadiev. So you can see these all people from Kazakhstan who were attending this conference. So there is Lena, as you can see, Tatiana, Olga, so all these people, yeah. So we were so lucky, and I was honored to give a speech in front of Mr. Sagadiev. So this is, I'm just trying to speed up a little bit. So, and if you have questions, maybe more questions, how to apply, and maybe this organizational and technical stuff, maybe I'll give you some tips how to write a good and successful application. Just email me, so you can see my email, albinakasenova@gmail.com. So I will be pleased to help you and give you tips. Don't be shy, and yeah, contact me.
Thank you so much, Albina, for presenting and I think inspiring our teachers to participate in such great events. So after every webinar, we send you a follow-up email with some information from the speakers, and I will make sure to include Albina's email in this follow-up email too, so that you have your contacts and you will contact her. Thank you so much, Albina. Actually, I wanted to do it as soon as possible, but I think today is the ideal time because we have so many new participants today, and I'm sure you've inspired them to apply for such events. Yeah, okay, so could you press stop share, because I think it's time for me to present our speaker. Thank you so much. So, and finally, sorry. Now I'm very happy to introduce August. And just a second, I want to find my presentation too now. And August, thank you so much for agreeing to contribute to professional development of our English teachers. And I'm very happy to introduce August Gansi. And we also met him at TESOL conference, and this is a great place to meet people. So I'm muted somehow. So do you hear me? Yes or no? Write in the chat. Okay. So we were happy to meet August at Chicago conference, and he's a current TESOL master student at Northeastern Illinois University of Chicago, and he's CELTA certified. So if you have, we had several speakers at our webinars who were sharing their CELTA opinion. So you are welcome to ask him about taking CELTA too. And also August works for ESL Associates, where he has partnered with Japan America Society of Chicago to provide English language training solutions for Japanese and other East Asian expats and their families in Chicago. Also, August runs weekly business English small group courses, as well as private one-to-one instruction and on-site language training for upper-level management at their corporate office location. I think this is also might be interesting for our participants, because there is a lot of demand for teaching business English and business people. And August is an adjunct instructor at Computer Systems Institute. He teaches business courses in small businesses, finance, accounting, marketing, computer applications for adult international students coming from over 90 different countries. Wow. And his primary research interest right now is on effective corporate English language and cultural immersion training programs. Again, thank you so much, August, for joining us today and giving your time and your wish to share your experience and knowledge with 36 participants today.
All right, definitely. Thank you, Elena. I really appreciate it. Just make sure, so can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you clearly, and I would like to ask participants to unmute themselves when they want to ask a question, and or write in the chat. And use your camera if you want everybody to see you. I think it will be a kind of polite.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Elena. So let's see. So everybody. So good evening, everybody. All our participants today for the CAST Professional Development webinar. I'm really excited to see so many participants joining me today. It's morning time here, evening time we're there. So I just want to say Kajra Kesh and Dobre Vice. I think that's right. So I think it was okay. But so let me go ahead and share my screen here. Okay. Okay. All right. So Elena, so is everything coming through okay on the slide?
Yeah, we see our emblem of Kazakhstan in your presentation. I guess other participants too.
All right. Okay then. So definitely. So today's webinar, the title again is Tips and Techniques for Effective Business English, or ESP, English for a Specific Purpose, Teaching. Okay. So normally when I do a session, class, groups, no matter what, if I'm speaking, I always actually, this is like the thing that I like to do. I like to actually go ahead and share a quote to start things off with here. So the quote is, "The whole purpose of education is to turn mirrors into windows." The speaker is Sidney J. Harris. Sidney J. Harris was a prominent journalist and author during the 20th century here in Chicago, actually, in my city here in Chicago. The key things here with this quote is the purpose of education and turning a mirror into a window. So that way the mirrors become windows. So what I want from all the participants here with us today is I want your input. During this webinar, at some point, I would like everybody to, please write in the chat just a brief statement or some kind of response about what this quote means to you as a educator. I think this is a really important thing to reflect upon. So you don't need to rush and try to write this immediately. We will have some time throughout this webinar as I'm presenting. So please, maybe take a few minutes, you can think about it, then you can put that into the chat. So just like a real brief statement for a response, just to help us to kind of get to know each other, to make this a little bit more interactive, okay? All right, so the goal of this webinar, so by the end of this webinar, you'll be able to identify what is business English and its categorization. You're going to be able to distinguish 9 differences and potential problems a teacher might encounter when teaching business English to English language learners. Also, to reproduce and practice 9 techniques and activities that you can use to help improve overall student success and satisfaction in their language learning goals. And towards the end, we'll have, you'll be able to locate and identify 3 ways how you can actually learn business English online for free, okay? All right. So and I think this is important that everybody knows kind of what to expect here in the different sections. So the overall outline that I'm going to do is I'm going to start just mention a few other points about myself. What is business English? ESP, CBI, and CLIL, and I'll get to that in just a moment. The 9 differences or potential issues between teaching business English and general English. The 9 different tips and techniques and activities that you can apply or use in your own teaching. And 3 ways you can learn business English yourself. Then we'll have a little conclusion, some closing remarks. And I want everybody to know, our participants, that I definitely encourage you to, in the chat or to ask questions throughout, but we will actually have a specific section that is going to be specifically for questions, and I'll do my best to provide answers, but we will have some time, maybe about 15 minutes towards the end for all your questions, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and kind of begin. So Elena, again, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. I really appreciate that. And just a few other points for our participants to know. So again, I am currently a graduate student in the TESOL department, pursuing my MA in TESOL at Northeastern Illinois University here in Chicago. If you are interested potentially more or further information about potentially doing a study abroad program or any other type of research with our university, I encourage you to reach out. I've put on here into my slides. You can email them or you can provide them a phone call. Their website address is at www.neiu.edu. And just a few other facts about me. Elena mentioned about kind of like what I do work-wise right now, but something very interesting that I'd like to share to let our participants know about me is before teaching, yes, I wasn't actually always an educator. Before actually becoming an instructor in the field of education, I actually was a bank manager. Maybe it's hard to believe. People that know me now kind of really act surprised when I mention that to them. But yes, so previously before I used to be a bank manager, so 2 very different types of fields. And my previous education before was in business management and international business. One other thing I'd like to mention too, since maybe some of the participants here might be interested in this kind of a professional development program, this summer, actually next month, I will be going to the UK and I will be participating in a CLIL methodology program. And basically it's a preparation program for the participants who are going to be taking the TKT exam, the 4th module focusing on CLIL. So as Albina mentioned earlier in her presentation about the importance in the application of CLIL, not just in Kazakhstan, but worldwide, This actually is a fairly good program. So again, if you have questions about that, you can ask me later. You can always email me as well. We'll get to that kind of contact stuff later. But I just wanted to mention about that professional development program that's out there. They run all year round. So if you're interested, I can always get you more information about that program as well. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and let's get into our presentation of my points that I have. So let's go and start first here with the differences and potential issues between teaching business English and general English. Okay. So the first thing I want to mention is, so what is business English? And just to let everybody know, throughout the presentation, I will be using BE to kind of shorten up for the acronym of that one. So what is business English? There's a lot of myths that I believe about business English. People think, is it teaching English or is it teaching business? It's a good question. A lot of times it depends on who you're actually asking or speaking to, because some instructors may say that, oh, there's really not any difference. It's just like teaching regular general English. Then other instructors may actually say that it's actually a lot different. So throughout my presentation, I'll try to address some of those points from my perspective professionally, from what I've experienced, to kind of help shed some light or provide you more information about this area of English language teaching, business English. Okay. Another question a lot of people ask is, do I need to know about business to teach it? Well, this is actually a very good question. The thing about teaching business English is it really depends on potentially your students or clients and what they are looking for and what field or area that they are in. Some clients or students will be in a very specific field looking for very technical language. If they're looking for that technical language, yes, I mean, you're going to need to know about it. But if it's more of a general class, maybe an advanced group of English language learners that are kind of just learning about business, maybe it's not quite so important. But throughout the presentation, I'll keep coming back to these questions to help kind of shed some light and to address kind of like these two big questions here. Okay. So now, the main purpose of business English is either or both of these here, in my opinion. So let's go back here for a moment. So the main purpose I would say is for the business professional to have the opportunity to expand in their career, or for a company to save money and cut costs through investment in human capital. If you're not familiar with what that term is, human capital, basically that we're just talking about investing in the workers, in the people themselves. So again, you know, it's either focused because of the individual or the individual because of the company they represent. But it's usually always one of those two things is kind of like the purpose for business English, the need, the desire for it, its importance in society and economically. The setting can often be formal education institution, could be language school, other higher education institutions. It can be done in smaller private groups, corporate offices, or even one-to-one. So there's a lot of different settings for the environment of teaching business English. It's not necessarily just, you know, always just in a classroom, or it's always at a corporate office. There's a lot of different environments that really can affect the setting of the entire lesson or curriculum. But there are various places that I would conduct business English, and I've done it in all of these settings, environments over my career so far. Okay. One other important thing I want to mention here in the beginning is about the categorization of business English as a form of English for specific purpose. Okay. So that way, so we've all heard about, you know, ESP, English for specific purpose. There's so many different types out there, not just focused on business, but I know instructors who do aviation English for airline pilots because of increased regulations and requirements for airline pilots to be able to communicate in that common English language for all the needs of aviation, for flying commercially, commercial, all types of airlines. Other things could be like for medical English, for medical care professionals. But in general, it's always, it's an approach to language teaching that organizes instruction around meaningful, relevant content or subject matter. Okay. Now, one other thing I want to mention, so content-based instruction, CBI, and then also, as like Albina was mentioning earlier before about CLIL, Content Language Integrated Learning. So these are two kind of common methods, approaches to teaching some type of, maybe English for a specific purpose. So here in the US, in Chicago, I actually do a lot of content-based instruction, and I'll kind of get to that here in just a second about some differences between the two. Universally around the world, there's probably a bigger focus on CLIL, but here in the US, we don't really focus on CLIL, but there is a lot of content-based instruction here in the US for international students. So one thing kind of to mention here, so content-based instruction really favors, I would say, the content, which makes sense. It's content-based instruction. So I would say that in a lot of my work that I do currently over the past few years when I'm teaching these business courses, not necessarily business English, but maybe I'm teaching a small business program to a group of international students. I'm teaching a marketing program. I'm teaching them how to write a business plan. The content is probably like about an 80% focus, and then maybe the language is about a 20% focus. Sometimes it's a little bit less. Sometimes it's about an 85-20 split when it comes to content-based instruction. Now, one of like the differences now you got to think about, so content-based instruction, CBI is, so for example, in the US, it's content taught in the country's native language. So for instance, I'm teaching business, a business course like small business in English here in the US. It's our native language. And often then for CLIL, on the other hand, often it's going to be teaching, say for instance, like in Kazakhstan with like a trilingual education program, basically you're teaching maybe contents, the sciences, mathematics, social studies, history, economics, in a foreign language through English, okay? So that's kind of a little bit of some difference that I just wanted to point out about that. If anybody has questions later, I can always be glad to try and clarify something, okay? So I was good for a little bit of an intro into really what is business English and kind of where it kind of fits. Now I want to get into some of like the real big differences or potential issues that I want all the participants here to be able to take away from to get a better understanding of, about teaching just a general English versus teaching business English, or even potentially English for a specific purpose, because most of the things that are going to be coming up here in the next 8 or 9 slides are going to be practical to various different types of content. So right now, if you are a science teacher, some of this could potentially apply to you if you're thinking about doing this privately. So the first thing I want to point out is a big one. This is one of the biggest things here when it comes to teaching business English is needs analysis, okay? So needs analysis, the role of it in any kind of English for specific purpose course is absolutely invaluable, I would say. There's really, it's invaluable. There's no price that can be put onto it because really you wouldn't be able to effectively conduct any kind of business English course or lesson without actually completing a needs analysis before you actually meet the students, okay? This is always, the first step in any kind of curriculum design. You could try going around it. I've known some other instructors that have, but unfortunately, the lessons were not very successful, and I'll kind of get to that point a little bit later. But yes, and often the needs analysis could possibly be in lieu of a language proficiency exam when done in a private setting. Often when I'm doing small groups, one-on-one, there often isn't going to be any kind of a language proficiency exam. So I need to really depend on the needs analysis beforehand so I can really try to gauge my student or my client's abilities and levels. And going back to it, so for the needs analysis, usually I conduct this in 3 steps. Later on, actually, I'm going to show you some examples of the needs analysis that I've used, and I'm going to make it available to all the participants. Actually, I'm going to make many materials available to the participants, so you have something to take away that maybe you can create some kind of variation, or you could use it in your own teaching or practice as well. But with the needs analysis, it's going to be conducted in 3 steps: plan, collection, and analysis. So when it comes to the planning part, you just got to think about what kind of information you need, why do you need this information, and how are you going to collect it. And then once you complete the collection stage, and that's what I'm really going to focus on later by showing you the templates, then it comes to the analysis part of the information. And what you do with it really is the key to any kind of information you collect. It's not about how much you get, but what you really do with it. Okay. The next really big point for differences between teaching business English and a general English course is specific practical application of target language, TL. Okay. This really is the main objective, I gotta say, of an ESP lesson or course. Now, of course, language learning should always be meaningful. I think all of us as educators can understand that. I mean, we always want to make whatever we do meaningful to the learners, but it should be even more of a critical focus on meaningful input for the learners in business English. Okay. Here's some examples, and I'm going to show you a few things later on as well to maybe make some things available to you. Some of these examples that I'm talking about for a specific practical application of target language would be, for instance, email writing. Maybe your student wants to be able to write inter-office memorandums, maybe memos between colleagues and coworkers, or maybe writing to customers or suppliers. Writing business documents. A lot of maybe the students would like assistance in being able to write more professional documents, and sometimes this can depend on the background of the student. Presentations is always a very big thing when it comes to business English. A lot of the times, the higher level management executives are going to be a lot more focused on sounding good and effective communication in a presentation to departments, other regional management, to board of directors. So presentations is a big part of business English. Phone conversations and conference communication is another real, and obviously for non-native English speakers, speaking over the phone is a very difficult thing. And honestly, most of my students tell me that this potentially might be the most difficult thing. A lot of my students would actually try to avoid a lot of times using phone conversation if possible and just rely upon written communication through email. But this is a big difference between general English is potentially to be a lot of emphasis on phone conversations, communicating effectively in that second language in English without the nonverbal, communication tools that you have available to you. The eye gestures, the hand gestures, the body movements. Without that, that's one of the big issues. And then I also get requests about specific conversational situations, after dinner social. So again, business meetings with customers, potentially my students want to know how to be able to communicate a little bit more clearly, maybe in other social settings as well. I get even a lot of students that want to know how to communicate better on the golf course, because a lot of business and communication and meetings is done on the golf course. Okay. But this is really where needs analysis is critical, because without a good need analysis that's already been completed, you wouldn't know what specifically to focus on for your students, whether they want to do email writing, whether they want to write specific documents, they want to work on presentations, they just want to have conversation, they want to improve their phone skills, okay? So again, so these are probably some of the most specific practical applications of target language in business English. And again, I'm going to show some examples a little later on. The next real big point, and this is a real key, and this is what a lot of instructors that maybe begin as a general English language instructor and they want to kind of transition maybe their teaching or career into business English teaching, and sometimes they struggle with with autonomy. So business English revolves around client-student autonomy. Basically what I mean is that the student says and dictates how classes should go. Again, this is going to be maybe potentially quite different than regular type of general English teaching, and especially in any kind of like a classroom setting that's a little bit more formal of an institution. So in general English, the instructor will be flexible maybe to a point until the student requests would maybe affect the integrity, I would say, or undermine the language learning goals. Now, business English teachers need to be extremely flexible for student satisfaction. For instance, if the student wants conversation, you give them conversation. If they want to focus on writing emails, then you work on writing emails for them. If they don't want conversation, then you don't give them conversation. Okay? So in general English, because I've done, and I still do general English teaching as well, sometimes it can be kind of hard to give up, relinquish some of that authority. But again, the real key is business English really for the success of each lesson, for the success of the student, more importantly for the satisfaction with the student or with the company that may be sponsoring the student. Really, you need to be extremely flexible, and everything revolves around the autonomy for the students or clients. Okay. The next point I would like to make is going to be about the grammar approach. And also one thing I want to mention, Elena, how are we doing on time as well? Are we going to be wrapping up about 11:30 or?
Well, actually, as we had Albina presenting, so if our webinar is usually 1 hour, but if you need some like 5 or 10 more minutes, it's fine. And dear participants, if you have to leave somehow, we will send you the link to the recording. So if you have to leave, you can watch the recording. So you are fine with time, I think.
Okay.
We still have 16 minutes, but you can have more if you need.
Okay, so yeah, so I'll kind of speed through a few more of the points. I really want to get to some of the shared documents things I'll have. So one thing I'd like to mention is about the grammar focus. A lot of times that's one of the big differences. There's less of a grammatical focus and more focus on language chunks. Often grammar points are realized mid-lesson, and error correction is addressed in the moment if needed. Typically, business English students already have like very advanced skills, but the way that you can be successful is there needs to be a lot more active listening done by the business English instructor. I mean, asking questions and taking notes at the same time. You really want to focus in on that conversation for those language mistakes. And usually error correction would be done in the moment, and you really want to explain to them why it's a mistake. And a lot of times maybe if there's a consistent grammar issue that I notice maybe over multiple lessons, then maybe I may prepare something for a future lesson that would give a little bit more focus to grammar. But typically grammar is a result of something that is said during a lesson. Fluency versus accuracy. I just want to mention that you really don't want to aim for perfection when it comes to business English teaching. You need to remember that for a lot of these professionals, their time is very valuable. They may be on company time if the company is sponsoring them. They really don't want, a lot of my students don't really want to focus so much on the accuracy part, but more of the fluency or the flow of language, really focusing on intelligibility of their conversation and be able to use key technical language and other phrases. Many of the students are going to have fossilized errors from their L1. You got to kind of keep that in mind. So, I mean, business English, you're always going to be working with adults and potentially these, you know, again, I mean, they're way past that critical point period in their lives. So there will be those fossilized errors. And really, like, the big thing you want to focus on is automaticity, which is the recall time on target language. This is ideal in business communication because it requires less time for the non-native English speaker to have to think about, you know, how do I produce this language? So you really want to reduce that recall time and create more automaticity as kind of like a general overall goal in the language learning process. Let's see, because of the time, now I'm going to make my slides available to all the members and participants, but I think I'm going to kind of jump ahead to sharing some other things actually in my presentation. Let's see here. All right, so the very first tip and technique that I want to share with everybody is going to be the needs analysis that I talked about that was so very important. This is what I have for everybody. I have actually 2 demo samples that I will make available to everyone. One of the demo samples that I have is going to be, basically can be for interview questions for needs analysis that's done orally, or I mean, it can also be used in a written form as well for a student to write down the question, write down the responses as well. If I can get, let me see, actually, where's my, Elaine, I was trying to get the my screen share to pull up here, but I'm trying to figure out why I don't have it.
So if you are sharing your PowerPoint now and you want to share another file, you stop share and then press share screen again and choose this file. So to be able to do that, you should, so first open this file that you are clicking now. And actually, it is better to press stop share.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Stop share first.
Okay.
And then open the file you wanted to show us.
Okay.
And then click share screen and choose the file you want to share.
Okay, there we go. All right. So here, everybody, so this is going to be for one of the needs analysis that I've used before, and it's been quite successful. It's a little bit more intensive. A lot of the times I might set aside potentially, if I'm doing this orally with a student, this is going to be done in a potentially a 1 hour, and often this is usually a basically this is a free session. Basically, it's like a consultation that I would do with a potential student or client, or with a company and their group of students or potential clients. So otherwise, here is the question. So basically it's grouped in the first part. You can see you have a personal and English background. I break it down into your work, then your interests, okay? And then again, you really just want to get to know a great feel for the student. You really want to know their needs, their demands, their previous language training, what they're doing now, what their interests are, I mean, how they're going to use this for work, what's difficult for them at work. So you really want to break it down a lot. And I felt that this is a very, effective group of questions that I've composed. And I'm glad to share this with everybody as well. There's also one other document I'd like to share with everybody as well here. Okay. Okay. So this is with one of my businesses here. And this one here.
August, excuse me,
Yeah.
could you click stop share, open the document, and then share screen again and choose the document?
All right, there we go. Thank you. And so with this needs analysis here, this template, which would be available to all the participants. This one here, it's a little bit more broader questions. It gives a little bit more flexibility for the student or client to be able to fill in more answers. Sometimes it's hard to elicit some information from them through this one. There may be a lot of potential follow-up questions you may need to ask the student during like the first day. But again, this basically it's great because here you can actually kind of rank categories from like 1 to 5. And based, they can kind of tell you what exactly is it that they want to learn. So this has been a pretty successful tool that I've used over the last few years. I've gotten pretty good results and pretty accurate results with my students and clients that I teach business English for. You can make variations to it, but I will make this available to you as well. Let's see how we're doing on time. Okay.
We have 10 more minutes.
Okay. Because I want to be able to get some time for
Questions.
for some questions here. Okay. So one other thing that I like to do that I like to share with everybody is about creating a profile on the first day when you meet the students, which goes beyond the needs analysis. I typically will focus on points like who are they, where they're at, what do they study, what's their passions in life, where do they want to go, what are they trying to do. And again, teacher versatility, you need to be extremely flexible. Again, maybe you've already designed some curriculum based on the needs analysis, but again, business English teachers have to be extremely flexible, again, be very versatile in how you and what you want to deliver. Again, the whole kind of point revolves around student-client autonomy. Again, they kind of dictate, how and what, they want to learn. Here's a real important thing that I'm going to share as well with the members is using TED Talks. It's a very key thing that I've done a lot with. I've actually included a demo sample of a handout that I've made for a specific TED Talk that I've gotten very good results from. I've gotten great feedback from. The speaker's Adam Grant. Basically, the handout has some comprehension questions and some discussion questions on it as well. I'll make that available to everybody at the end, and you could try and practice and use it maybe in your own lessons. If you're familiar with TED Talks, it's a great way to be able to share knowledge and content. One of the other big things that I do in my business English teaching is journal sharing. I let students choose a topic or interest that's important to them. On the screen, you can see I have an example of a customer email that one of my students brought in before. Basically, they before the lesson, they mark things that are not clear, that does not make sense. And basically, they bring it in and they teach it to the other students if it's a group, or they teach it to me. So this is a little bit of kind of like task-based learning, I would say. But again, the student-client autonomy is the key in business English. Let them kind of dictate, they kind of do what they want for learning. Let's see, I'm trying to see. I'm going to skip this point here. Oops. Let's go back. I lost my screen. Give me one moment. All right. So yeah, I'm just going to skip through a few more points here. And actually, I just want to kind of jump to the very end right here and share this with the group. So for some of our participants, maybe you're not necessarily so much interested right now in teaching business English, but you want to learn yourself a little bit more about business English in an easy, free manner. And then maybe you might try to teach business English after. So I have 3 things for you to take away here. One is professional social networks like LinkedIn. It's a great way for engaging business content. It allows for you to actually able to communicate yourself. You can discuss articles, comment on status, and write about your own professional experience. Another thing is business English media and entertainment. This is important because you can actually really understand how the business language is properly used. Things that you can learn and focus on are about fluency and tone through these kinds of exercises and activities. Here's some examples I recommend for films. You can find them on YouTube. Wall Street, The Big Short, Art and Copy. These are great tools if you're trying to learn some business English. The Harvard Business Review's IdeaCast if you want a podcast, and again, TED Talks. And the third thing would be business blogs and websites. This is a great way where you can be introduced to frequently used terms, how to use it in a sentence, and situations that these kind of words would be used in correctly. And at the bottom, I have some examples. Inc., Entrepreneur, Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, and the Financial Times and New York Times. All right, so again, so I want to thank everybody. So Rahmet, Spasibo, I really appreciate everybody here joining us for this webinar. Basically, again, like I said, I'm going to make a lot of materials available. Elena will be helping to take care of that. I think she'll be emailing out maybe to all the participants or maybe a shared Google Drive. But basically, I just want to open it up now for some questions. I think Elena said we can maybe extend potentially maybe like an extra maybe 5 or 10 minutes, maybe give us about 15 minutes for some questions here. So let me go ahead. So I encourage you, please turn on your microphone, share your questions, or if you just like, you can write your question in the chats, okay?
Yeah, so, and as you can see in the chat, August, now that there are a lot of comments about your question at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. So let's take a look here. Yeah, let's go, where's the chat? I lost.
Okay, I will. So while you are thinking about your questions, I will read some comments, okay?
Okay.
So for example, Sona writes that as for me, we should provide our students with this window. It is the important stage when a student stops seeing himself as a reflection. He broadens his mind by watching what is around him. And this is the very moment of turning a mirror into a window. We often don't need silver to see the world around us.
Mm-hmm. Wow,
and Tatiana Kolesnikova thinks that, well, generally it's teaching for a purpose.
Okay.
And I'm not sure what's the name, so it's just admin. Make sure you write your name when you register for the webinar next time so that we can see who is who. So I agree with Sona, and I can add that this phrase refers to teachers as well. It means that they also see more, not just their reflection, but the needs of other students. So mirror turn into windows. Albina likes the language, the idea of language chunks. They also use them in general English teaching. And then we have a lot of thank you. So Albina, would you like to unmute yourself and read your very long comment?
Well, I found the chat too right now, so I got the chat.
Okay, yeah. So dear participants, please, your questions.
Oh, thank you very much for sharing your experience on teaching business English. I think you gave a great insight for English teachers, because we really tried to integrate business soft CLIL into our classroom. So, and I think business English is kind of, we are now only focused on these science subjects, as we said, chemistry, biology, etc., etc. But I think we can, having your presentation, I think we can also think about how can we also maybe try to integrate real life situation, like situation role plays in a bank, or writing emails, complaint emails to bank, something like that. So, and I really liked, maybe you can share some samples you're using in your classroom, this kind of situation. So bringing soft CLIL as for English teachers for us. Thank you so much. It was really interesting.
Thank you. And thank you, Elena, for that. And Albina and Elena.
So there is a question, what are the keywords for? So I don't want to take a lot of time to tell this long story. So CAST agrees to issue certificates for the attendance of this webinar only to those who were attending in person. We will send you the link to the recording of this webinar, and it will be in YouTube channel, and you can actually watch other 9 webinars, but you will not find keywords in the recording. Okay, so any questions about the presentation? So sometimes we begin to get some questions after the webinar, and when we have some insights and we begin to think about the content. So I will be sending you a Google form where you can write your questions, and then I will make sure to forward them to August, and I hope he will be happy to answer them.
All right. Yes, I would. I just saw there was a question just showed up in the chat from Myra. So Myra, thank you for your question. I just saw here. She's asking about what is Shark Tank. I didn't get to talk about that. I didn't quite have enough time. It was on the slide. Shark Tank is it's a TV show here that's been running in the U.S. For many years. Basically, the show, there's entrepreneurs, so people that have their own small business. They come onto the show looking to maybe get some investment from some very famous, wealthy individuals. So that's kind of the main point to Shark Tank. The reason why I like to show Shark Tank in some of my courses, this is more so like one-on-one, but so some of the students, maybe say for instance, they're a product engineer and they don't really focus on other aspects of business, but they want to improve their knowledge and ability to communicate in other areas of business. So Shark Tank is really good because it's a real good, solid source of various different types of business language and jargon, various different types of input that is very effective, especially, like I said, if you're maybe an engineer or you're like in legal or other areas that aren't exposed to that kind of business language. Again, if anybody has questions about like Shark Tank or anything else, you can always email me. I'd be more than happy to help provide answers to any kind of emails that anybody sends to me. So again, thank you.
August, there is one more question. Sona would like to listen to your opinion about the quote.
Oh, okay. So my opinion on the quote. So the purpose of education is to turn mirrors into windows. So when I think about a mirror, I think about basically, you can't see very far. Obviously, you look at the mirror and you're limited to just only yourself, okay? But when you turn that mirror into a window, suddenly your capacity, your ability, what you can see, what you can experience in life expands and it grows. And often, as soon as a window opens, it can be exponentially the increase on what you take in. But yeah, to me, that's what it is that window represents opportunity in a better capacity for knowledge.
Thank you. So I don't see any questions in the chat. Thank you so much for attending the webinar, and August, I'm really grateful to you for presenting for us today with such a great content, and I have some insights that I will also include in the Google form, and I will make sure the participants will receive all the materials from you and the recording, and also complete the feedback form. And I hope to see you in our future webinars. I hope to see the participants in July and August. If you have some other topic that you would like to present, just contact me and we will schedule one more.
Sure, definitely. So thank you very much, Elena and Albina. Thank you again for sharing as well. It's a pleasure to co-share this webinar with you.
Yeah, and I will send you the link to the recording too. You can share it with your colleagues, and also a feedback form where you will be able to have an access to all their replies and questions.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Okay, so have a
Bye-bye.
nice evening for participants and have a good day for August. Bye-bye.
All right.